I'm down here! Still!
What a predicament!
Hello, my name is Alex Bain and welcome to episode 2 of What a Predicament. It's a podcast that tries to shine a little bit of light on some of today's lighter issues. Now, I could actually use a bit of light myself, actually. I've found myself at the bottom of a crevice in Antarctica, which is really quite a hopeless situation as I'm finding. But suffice to say, I now have a lot of time on my hands, and not too much to do down here. So I'm going to use my predicament in a positive way by spending it researching another predicament that faces not just me, but by everyone who recognises this. Even if you don't recognise it, chances are you've heard it before. And if you're like me, once you've noticed it, you're going to hear it in everything. Much like the Wilhelm scream or that one truck sound effect that goes brr, brr, brr. When a scene in a movie, TV show, or a radio play or radio ad needs kids playing and cheering, odds are good that you're going to hear. So how has it come to be that it seems like there's only the one sound effect of kids playing? Now, I'll admit, it's not the easiest thing in the world to go and record kids at a playground, so I quickly abandoned that approach and tried to locate the source of this one particular recording that seems to pop up in everything. 28 small group open parenthesis 10 close parenthesis of young kids shouting and cheering exterior. From the album Premiere Edition 14, Crowds, Kids, Babies, Heartbeats. The track was recorded by Todd Maitland, a New York-based sound engineer who has worked on more than 80 films in his career as a sound designer and earned a total of 3 Oscar nominations for his work. This particular field recording was edited by Lon Bender and Walia Stateman, mixed and mastered by J.B. Richardson. You too can join the many people who have used this sound effect in your own projects by purchasing a license from the production house Hollywood Edge, which was acquired in 2014 by Sound Ideas. I talked to Brian Nimens, CEO and president of Sound Ideas, to try and get to the bottom of these youngsters. You are the CEO of what I believe is the biggest sound effects and music suppliers in the world. How did you get to build such an empire?
Well, thank you. Well, I guess it started back in the 70s when I was just a recording engineer specializing in doing recording for commercials, audio visuals, and documentaries and that sort of thing. And people would come to me because I had a small sound effects library, and I realized, gee, if I can build my sound effects library larger, more people will come and use me. So I spent a lot of time building my sound effects library with the feeling that people would use my recording studio in return. Well, once I got to a certain point, I thought, gee, maybe I can sell a few copies of this. So back in 1979, I'm dating myself here, we sold our first copy of the library to the Canadian Broadcast Corporation, and that library came to them on reel-to-reel tape. There was 125 box reels of tape. It would take us literally a whole week of dubbing, of copying, to make one complete pass of the library, and then sell it to the client. So it didn't take long to realize that, gee, the sound effects business, which was actually catching on and becoming more popular, I guess we were there at the right time when we started to sell our library. And it wasn't until about 1985, through a meeting that I had at an AES with the developers of the compact disc, Philips, that they had produced a beautiful CD player for the broadcasters, but they needed software. So we made an agreement, and back then there were only a very limited number of CD pressing plants in the world, so you couldn't beg, borrow, or steal pressing time. It was like gold. And as a result, we got our library pressed before any competition could get out there for years. So we were like the number one library, and then from that we started to build the library and add more and more specialty libraries to our collection, and it just grew over the years.
With your libraries, what did you find are the big sellers? What sound effects are constantly in demand?
I wouldn't say that there's one particular sound effect in demand. I'd say general. People, when they want to buy a sound effects library, they want a little bit of everything because they don't know what they're going to be asked for. So we have two general series. The General, which is the Series 6000, and there's 8 extensions to that collection. That has been overwhelming our most popular series. And then most recently, we did a new version, a new general library called the General HD, which is a high-definition sound effects library, and there are 3 additions to it, and that collection is extremely popular as well.
What would you find in a general sound effects library?
Everything from airplanes to zippers, and everything in between. Gun collection, explosions, car sounds, comedy sounds, girl screaming, you name it, you'll probably find it there.
Have you gone out and collected a lot of these yourself, or do you source them elsewhere?
We do both. We have 2 we have 3 full-time engineers, not counting myself, and I quite frankly totally enjoy still going out and recording sound, so I do it when there's something special to go out and record. But yes, we go out, record, we will rent facilities. We've rented a Learjet, we've rented helicopters, we've rented a weapon expert, that was outside of Las Vegas. We hired a gun expert who brought out every gun you can imagine, and in the desert we recorded them so that there wasn't any background noise, and it was pristine and clean.
Did you make sure you got to go out on that one?
Oh yes.
What was the funnest one?
I think it was probably like the Dirty Harry gun, the American Eagle, and it was a 50 caliber handgun like the Dirty Harry gun, and I shot it twice, and I couldn't believe the power one gun had. It was just amazing.
In your distinguished career, I'm sure you've worked with some of the best in sound design. Have you come across a guy called Todd Maitland?
Yes, I know the name. I can't.
Well, he's a sound designer. I know he's been nominated for some Oscars for sound design, but I know he is credited as the original recording engineer on one specific sound effect. Is there anything you know specifically about a sound effect called 28 bar small group (10) of young kids shouting and cheering exterior?
Okay, actually, what you're talking about is actually came from the Hollywood Sound Effects Library. I acquired the Hollywood Sound Effects Library, and that's why it's made us sort of the largest publisher of sound effects in the world. That I don't have any history of where that particular sound came from.
It's one of those sound effects you hear come up in a lot of things. I've noticed it in, I think, a radio ad, and then I noticed it in the background of South Park. And it's one of those sounds, once you hear it, you can't unhear. You realize every time there's a scene in a movie, it's the same children playing, because there's a very particular, you hear one child sort of scream louder than the others, and it's very distinctive. Is there certain things of your own work where you see it in the wild, you see it in a movie and go, oh man, that's it?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's certain sounds, especially if you've recorded it yourself and then mixed it and mastered and put it into the library, it's sort of etched into your mind of some of the sounds that you've recorded. I think what you're also talking about here are what I call signature sounds. And there are certain sounds out there that, we all recognize, like the lightsaber from Star Wars, which is a fantastic sound. We distribute the Hanna-Barbera sound effects library, which is all the Fred Flintstone sound effects. I think we can all think, gee, remember Fred Flintstone when he's about to bowl? That twinkle toe sound? Yep. As well as him being donked on the head by a rock or something. They're all recognizable sounds that have become signature sounds with that. But you quite often hear them being used in a commercial or a film of some sort.
So why does it seem like you hear the same sound effects in everything? What makes people go and use a sound effects library rather than go out and make all their own sounds for a film production or a radio play or something?
It just comes down to convenience. It's a lot easier to go to your computer and you've got all your library set there and you need a thundercrack. You can put it in and see if it works. Oh, it works. Opposed to say, okay, I need to go record another thundercrack. I wonder when we're going to have another thunderstorm so I can record one. And it's a very difficult thing. It's by chance that you get good sounds like that. So it's mainly, I'd say, the majority of time, it's convenience as well as it's budget restrictions to, they have a time limit. You got to finish this post and get this out by a certain date. They'll go to a sound effects library because they can get pretty well everything they want, and it's at their fingertips, opposed to having to go out, find the right location, the right, ambience that they want to record, or a particular sound effect, and record it, bring it back, master it, and then put it into your production.
I guess you'd know from experience, hands-on experience, sometimes sound effects, the actual sound of a thing in real life isn't the sound we equate with it when we hear it in a movie. For instance, a lot of dog noises, you expect to hear this, woof woof, but instead a lot of it's just a kind of gurgling. It's hard to get a good baby sound effect because they just make a lot of gurgling noises and mumbling and stuff. What are some examples of things where you've either had to spice up a sound slightly to get the sound you're looking for?
Okay, well, what you're talking about essentially is what's called sound design. And the wonderful thing about sound is that you can manipulate it substantially. Like, the best example is dinosaurs. Let's face it. You can't go out there and record dinosaurs. They're extinct. So we actually sound design dinosaur sounds. We take like a bull sound or numerous animal sounds, mix them together, shift them down, and be a little creative with them, and you actually can create creature sounds that sound like dinosaurs. There is a lot of sound design. In fact, if you look at the credits of a movie, usually there's a sound design credit for 2 or 3 people that, or maybe just one, that have designed particular sounds for that movie.
And there you have it. These sound designers work to create signature sounds that audiences will instantly recognize. And then the engineers of film or audio productions will scroll through a library of sound effects like the ones provided by Brian's company's Sound Ideas, and they'll scroll through and go, oh, that one's all right. Yeah, it's close, not quite there. And they hit these signature sounds, which honestly they've probably heard in other productions, and something in the back of their mind goes off saying, yes, that's exactly what lightning or kids playing sounds like. And they will select those, and that's why you hear them in your media you love to consume. Because you love to consume media, don't you? You're doing it right now. So next time you're watching illegally torrented episodes of South Park, and there's a scene that takes place during recess, you might just hear... And once you do, you can't unhear it. Sorry. Hey, don't shoot the messenger. Thank Todd A. Maitland and those like him for creating a nice little sonic world. While we're on the topic of thanks to Brian Nimens at Sound Ideas for joining me this week. Thanks to Tim Raby, Carolina Simpson, and John Galliers at NZMe. John Galliers did our wonderful cover art for What a Predicament. The opening theme music is a derivative of The Little Hotel of Horrors by Decamentarium, licensed under Creative Commons Attribution 4.0. Thank you for finding this and for listening right through to the end. This podcast has been a What a Cat production. You can listen to each episode as it's released weekly at the official What a Cat website, whatacat.co.nz, or download it wherever you would usually download your podcasts, and subscribe on iTunes if you're so inclined. If you're an Instagrammer, here's a rare opportunity to be about the third follower of @WhatACatProductions on Instagram. And there I'll just put up a little more info, a heads up each week as I put episodes out, just saying, hey, there's a new one out, and you don't miss it. Maybe even some behind the scenes production stuff. We will see how this whole thing develops. It's only episode 2. If this episode has given you a hankering to create some iconic audio for yourself, or you just want to shower praise on me for this episode, you can email me, Alex, at whatacatproductions@gmail.com. I also write stuff, so if you need copy written for your website, or a pamphlet, or something for your... Hang on, what's that?
Oh, it's a helicopter! Guys, I'm down here! Rescue me, please! Wait, where are you going? No! Oh, you... Uh-oh. Well, the good news is I'm out of that crevasse, but the bad news is I'm now floating, stranded in freezing Antarctic waters. I'd say out of the frying pan into the fire, but this is kind of literally the opposite. What a predicament.